So to continue with my remarks on Hare, Hine and Shattuck rightly point out that Hare, in the 37 years of his episcopate, established chapels, 4 boarding schools, missionary residences, and supervised the training and deployment of clergy, catechists, and other church workers. His efforts met with great success numerically, and you can read about that. But as with the building of that stone church, there were costs in these efforts in which Hare engaged. Those boarding schools have been described by indigenous Native American scholars whose forebears came from the territory in which Hare did his missionary work. Those boarding schools have been described by Native American scholars as prison camps for enforced enculturation. Prison camps for enforced enculturation. Just last week, we had a Native American scholar here at the University of Denver, Barbara Mann, from the University of Toledo. She is being read in Tinker's course. Her 14 books are considered to be among the very best by an indigenous anthropologist of Native American culture. And Mann pointed out that the territory over which Hare presided encompassed the Ponca, the Dakota, the Lakota, parts of the Oneida, the Sanitee, and the Sioux tribes. Each of those tribes spoke different languages. And in creating his boarding schools, one of the things Hare tried to do was to undo Babel, if you will. The speakers of the confounded languages of these various tribes were put together in the school to create among the speakers of the various Native American languages utter frustration, and in their frustration to create a silencing of their native indigenous language, and therefore with that silence to create an opportunity for coercion, for a teaching of God's language, for a teaching of English. And it was, of course, the English of the authorized version of the Bible, the King James Bible, and the language of the Book of Common Prayer. That gives us a very different picture than what we are normally accustomed to. It's not simply the delightful, charming day school that these Native Americans are being brought into, like the kindergartens of our own childhood, but rather boarding schools that are part and parcel of this enculturation, this civilizing of savages that I've talked about earlier. If you recognize that, you can understand a bit more about the conflict between Hare and Samuel Dutton Hinneman, whose biography is included as well in Hine and Shattuck on pages 216-218. The sentences at the bottom of page 217 and continuing to the top of 218 are telling. Quote, Hinneman undoubtedly possessed a difficult temperament, but part of the conflict between Hare and Hinneman stemmed from his comparatively tolerant approach to evangelization. He had allowed Indians to continue some of their traditional practices. Hare's approach, on the other hand, was far more conservative. He did not tolerate religious syncretism. That's an understatement. That's the tip of the iceberg. Despite his desire to evangelize Native Americans and to civilize them, Hare did not adopt a prophetic voice that would have allowed him to resist the destructive American resettlement policies coming out of Washington during this time. Within 3 years of his arrival at the Niobrara territory, Congress authorized the Interior Department to remove the Poncas to Indian Territory, that is, from the Dakotas to Oklahoma, to make way for the resettlement of the Brule Sioux. The Poncas were not consulted about this. They first learned of the plan when they went to one of Hare's churches on a Sunday morning in the summer of 1876. The news was not delivered by the bishop, but rather by a candidate for ministry, Richard Gray, who was also a physician in the territory. Gray said that he was, quote, exceedingly sorry for them, as they had been honest, industrious, frugal, hard-working, and had just gotten themselves nice houses and farms. I mean, how patronizing is that? But they had to be driven from their homes and sent far to the south, never to come back. The Ponca said that they would rather die than leave their homes, and they frantically pled for support in their efforts to stay in the territory. But the government, on the advice of Hare, went forward with the removal of the Ponca, sending a detachment of 25 soldiers to force their expulsion to the Queopah River in the Indian Territory in Oklahoma. 681 persons, led by their chief Standing Bear, started a long walk in the heat of the summer, during which they experienced torrential rains, swollen rivers, and even a tornado. No preparation whatsoever had been made to receive them into Oklahoma, and there were many casualties. Those who made it to Oklahoma at some point later returned to a part of Nebraska, but it was a tremendous upheaval for the Ponca people as they were displaced from Hare's territory. Hare's advice for the Ponca removal was apparently based again on this paternalistic assumption that he knew what was best for them. So, these are the important issues, the tensions with which you must wrestle with this week, especially as you read Hare's words, Hare's reflection on the 15th anniversary of his consecration. I very much look forward to reading your remarks, to hearing your engagement with this difficult chapter in American history and Episcopal history.